Hi, everybody. People are still trickling in, so we're just going to wait another couple of minutes to allow everybody to enter. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hi, everybody. So thank you so much for coming this evening. It's wonderful to see you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Laura Arricchio, and many of you know me. I'm the Dean of Fordham College at Lincoln Center. In fact, I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary on Saturday, and it has indeed been quite a year. But if I was going to go through this year anywhere, there's no place I would rather do it than right here. Let me tell you a little bit about what's going to happen tonight. We're using Zoom webinar. Now I know everybody is very familiar with Zoom, but you might not have used Zoom webinar. So let me just tell you that if you'd like to submit a question for our panel tonight, please click on the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We're not going to be able to answer every question. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions. And while we do have many colleagues who have joined us tonight, we will not be able to get to answer every question, but we will do our best to get to as many as possible during our time together. So please do not be offended if we don't manage to get to yours, but we will try to get to as many as possible. Many will be answered by me or by our panelists online, live, and others will be answered in the chat. So please keep your eye on the chat section, and there's an answered section in the Q&A pop-up window. Let me tell you who's with us tonight. Joining me here are representatives from a wide range of departments and programs. They include from theater, Stephanie Bubness and Chad McCarver. From natural sciences, Jason Morris. From art history and music, Maria Ruvold. And from the Ailey Fordham BFA dance program, Melanie Person. From the Dean's office, we have Micah McKnight, Assistant Dean for Sophomores, and Rebecca Stark-Gendrano, Assistant Dean for Juniors. In addition, behind the scenes, several colleagues are helping out with questions that come through the Q&A box. They include Bob Munyo, Associate Dean of SCLC, Emily Reel from the BFA program at the Ailey School, and Dr. Tracy Ann Williams, Assistant Dean for Student Support and Success. Kindly note that tonight's webinar will be recorded and shared just in case you need to leave before the end. So thank you all for joining us. Let me start out by maybe talking a little bit about some of the general situations about course modality. This is something that a lot of people have questions about, and I'd like to just say a little bit more about those. You should see in the chat that a bit of information has been put in. So this is not the Q&A, but in the chat box, a bit of information has been put in about the flexible hybrid model and about the options that you have for you today. I'd like to just go through that for a moment because I know that a lot of people have questions about them. The flexible hybrid model has been adopted for almost all courses, not for all, but almost all courses. And what the flexible hybrid model is meant to do, it's meant to minimize disruption in the case of a move to online-only learning. And it's built around an understanding that the facts on the ground might change at any time during the semester. For any given student, any given faculty member, or for the campus, the city, or the state, the model allows any course to adapt as needed, with the health and safety of our community as a top priority at all times. So essentially, every course will have both synchronous and asynchronous experiences. The synchronous experiences could be either in person or online. That just means that you're all together, you're with your faculty member. And asynchronous experiences are almost always online. and they remain the same regardless of the conditions on the ground. So we're going to ask some faculty members as we go through today to talk a little bit more about what that might actually mean in people's classes. In addition, some classes will be fully online. Those too will have both synchronous and asynchronous components. In other words, this is not going to be last semester's online learning. Last semester, we had to switch very quickly. Everybody had to adapt, the students, the faculty, all of us. We learned Zoom. Who knew? A lot of people had never used Zoom before. But now we've been spending the entire summer working on best practices, learning how to devise courses in the online format that actually deliver more in many ways than courses that are in the standard in-person format. So some of our faculty today will be telling you about those. Finally, I just want to explain a moment about the form that you've been asked to fill in. The form has to be filled in about your course modality. The form only has to be filled in if you know now that you want to be online only. If you know now that you want all of your courses to be online only, please fill that form in, select the online only option, and submit it. We're asking people to please submit it by August 6th. Now, of course, we realize that your circumstances might change. You might need to switch or decide to switch to online only at another time. That's fine. The reason we're asking you to please, if you know that you need to do it in person, that you need to go online now, to tell us, is so that we can adjust courses as effectively as possible. So I think with that, I'm now going to maybe open it up and turn to some of the more specific questions about, let's see. There's a question about the labs in particulars, and I'm wondering, maybe Jason Morris, can you tell us a little bit about how lab courses are going to work? And do we know yet if there will be lab fees as there were, or?
No, I had asked about lab fees. I don't have an answer yet. Maybe Martin knows. Martin DeGrande, the new chair of the department. As far as I know, all the natural science department labs are going to be online for the semester. So that won't be a problem, and students are going to be able to attend those online. And for any lab course, if a student needs to be online, or for any course, my understanding is that the student will be accommodated for that. So I don't think that would be a problem either. If a student wanted to have a Rose Hill course, for instance, from the biology department at Rose Hill, count for the natural sciences major, that's something that the student would need permission for. They would need to get enrolled into the Rose Hill lab course, which will be probably quite difficult to do with our social distancing. And then they would need to have the course count for the major, and they'd need Dr. DeGrande's permission for that. But we're offering all of the lab courses we would have been offering, it's just that they're online.
Thank you so much. I actually, while you're still here, Jason, though, let me just offer one clarification and one other question about lab courses. So I believe that the biochem lab will likely be offered in a hybrid model. I learned this from Martin DeGrande today at Lincoln Center.
Great.
But most of the labs will indeed be run online. I'm wondering, can you tell us, how is it possible to run a lab online?
So a lab course has a lot of different learning goals, right? You're supposed to learn how to design experiments. You're supposed to learn how to analyze data. You're supposed to learn how to write like a scientist. So all of that can be done online. What you can't do is learn how to work the apparatus itself, but that's usually not the most important component of the lab course. And so we'll be able to achieve most of our learning goals, some of them because we'll be focusing on them more, perhaps as well or better than we might have been otherwise.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. You mentioned social distancing also, and there's a couple of questions in the chat coming in about social distancing, and also about the specifics of what that's going to look like. And in particular, with things like the RAM van and also with regard to things like, well, how would I exactly survive in Lincoln Center in social distance? And so I'll take this. I'll take this. But Jason, if you're either welcome to stay or go, whatever you prefer. But in terms of social distancing, I know that the RAM vans are going to be reduced to about 50% capacity. Most classrooms, and so I really just want to make sure everybody understands what the classroom and experience of being in Lowenstein is going to be. In the classrooms, most of the classroom capacity is reduced to about a third. So that means that some classes will never be able to meet fully in person, depending on how long the classes are. So, how large the classes are. So what's going to happen, there are questions about that. What's going to happen is that your faculty member will likely need to segment the class in some way. So either half the class will come in for half of the time, or half the class will come in person. If there's an in-person class, half the class will come in on one day and the other half another day. But this is part of the reason why some faculty members are opting for online only, because online only will indeed allow everybody to be all together at the same time as needed. And the synchronous learning in online only courses won't have to be restricted in the same way. I guess in terms of the actual facilities in Lowenstein, you might be interested to know that the elevators are being reduced to 6-person maximum. And everybody will have to wear masks at all times in all public spaces, of course, on campus, as we are necessarily in New York all the time anyway. And while you're in the elevator, everyone has to face front and no talking. It's not going to be the usual Lowenstein experience. In fact, I'll say that very little, I live in Manhattan, very little is similar to what it's been. I think those are some of the questions I really wanted to answer. Unless, Jason, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
The only thing I would add is that I can speak mostly for my department. I know that my colleagues have spent the entire summer revamping their courses and reinventing their courses. And our objective is that we're going to be able to meet our learning goals, and the courses are going to be engaging and rigorous and prepare you well for taking the next level courses that they're prerequisites for. So we're pretty optimistic, and we're being pretty ambitious.
Thank you so much. In fact, speaking of ambitious, I wonder if, not that she herself is ambitious, but her department is. I wonder if Dr. Ruvald might join us for a moment, because I'd really like to ask her to talk a little bit about what art history is doing, talking about, so we all know that, last semester was not a great success, but Dr. Ruvald, if I'm not mistaken, I think that you and some of your colleagues actually took a course yourself on flexible hybrid learning?
Well, we were among the 500 faculty members who enrolled in the course that was offered at the beginning of the summer to all instructors, full-time faculty, adjunct faculty, to learn really best practices for hybrid learning. And so we all participated in that. But collectively as a department, we've spent the entire summer completely reimagining our Intro to Art History course, the content and the delivery of the content. So what we've done is we've created a class that's actually team taught across sections. So every student in every section will have lectures from the expert in his or her field. And then we'll meet in our small sections as we've always done, but to have much more intense, personalized conversations about the material that we're learning. So the experience in our core classes is going to be a little bit different, whether you're in person or whether you're online. You're going to have that individual attention from your professor, but you're also going to have a kind of cross-section community where everybody who's taking this class all the way across the university at both Rose Hill and Lincoln Center are going to be engaged in different kinds of activities. We're going to have a speaker series. We're trying to create community across both campuses and across the online and in-person environment.
Thank you so much. And in fact, now that you mention cross-campus, this is probably a good moment for me to let people know of late-breaking news that Dean Mast of FCRH and I, with help from Dr. Munyo and some others, we are, for the fall semester, lifting the college restriction on core classes. Our goal is really to ensure that you have as much flexibility as possible, as many opportunities to take courses that you need as possible, or that you want as possible. And so given the fact that many courses will be online, we realize that there's actually no real restriction anymore. If you're taking these courses online, there's no distance restriction. And so this could actually be another opportunity to really explore and expand what the community means. So let me now toss to, I think, theater, because we have a lot of questions coming in about theater. So maybe Stephanie or Chad, can you tell us what are theater courses going to look like? And what about theater production? What about theater design and construction? All of those things. The whole panoply of the theater world is being asked about.
Yes, we are part of the whole world, in fact, and we are doing the same thing everybody else is doing, which is trying to figure out exactly how to do it and do it well. Stephanie, you please join me anytime to pop in and add to what I'm saying. But one of the things we had I'm answering one question right now. Somebody asked me about the possibility of course, acting classes should be the one thing in person. I would agree 100%. They should be in person, but not normally when there's a pandemic in the house, as it were. Because what we're now forced to do in person is to wear a mask 100% of the time. You cannot be in a classroom with a teacher and have the mask off. If you're on campus, your mask has to be on. So we're trying to figure out how can you possibly do an acting scene when you can't see the face. One of the things that we're working on is a whole new way of engagement, and the fact that I can see you and really get a sense of who you are and be immediate, much more so here than I can 6 feet away in a mask, covered up, with other students who are actually online, and they're trying to see and participate in the same class, and they're viewing virtually while others are in the space. It just becomes an impossibility to really give everybody the same experience and the same depth of education in that moment. So we just feel like it's going to be a whole lot more productive to have certain parts of this virtual. And when we can, of course, any moment we can step in there and make that happen in the space, we will, but we'll have to have some of those restrictions removed. So I don't know, Steffi, if you'd like to add anything about that.
Yeah, thank you, Chad. Actually, we had yet another faculty meeting today, and we include our students in our faculty meeting, so everyone's engaged and the community's represented. I just want to quote one thing from our meeting today that I thought was exceptional by Daniel Alexander Jones, who's our premier instructor, who's our playwriting genius, and we're so lucky to have him. But he said something that I wrote down. He said, we're developing individually as instructors, but we're developing also collectively as a program. So the instructors are working on their own thing, and then they bring it back to us in our meetings, and collectively we shape it and form it, and we work it out for the theater. So yes, the model is going to look totally different than it did last year. Productions, the first two are going to be online. Our second piece, Uncle Vanya, is going to be a devised piece straight from the actors' mouths. They're going to develop the text and the script. That's a new development because we actually couldn't get rights to the version we wanted to do. So
online, yeah.
Yes, the online version. A lot of plays we found, they are not giving the rights to do anything on camera or recorded or via Zoom. So we had to adjust accordingly. And so that's one of the things that we've been doing. So we are fitting in the shows we want to do, but in the way that we want to do them. And so we're adjusting accordingly. So you're going to get the full experience, the full on-camera experience. And we promise it will be fulfilling artistically and academically.
One more thing I would just add, if we got time, Laura, is that we have so many opportunities to do so many things we've never been able to do before. Right now, we've got the curriculum of courses tied into what are the productions, and we're actually going to be studying them in classes as well as doing the virtual production. So that's something we've never been able to do, is have those two work together. And so the faculty is very excited about it. All the teachers, we're comparing syllabus so that we're not covering the same scripts. We're going to be a whole lot more organized than we ever have been. So it's very exciting.
Thank you. Actually, can I ask you while you're still here, there's a couple of more, since there's many questions about theater, I'd just like to toss in a couple, and then I think we'll shift to I think then we'll shift to dance, if that's okay. So we'll do theater and then dance. We'll kind of go through the whole performing arts, then
Wonderful.
music. There's a whole thing going on here. So I'm wondering, Stephanie, maybe, can you tell us about Clint's project in engaging with universities and colleges all around the Northeast?
Yeah, I actually don't know too much about that. You asked me that last night, and all I can say is Clint, I believe, received a very generous sum from the dean's office, and he came up with this wonderful idea to work on Naomi Rawles's One Flea Spare with a bunch of other wonderful institutions up and down the East Coast. And so it's going to be a cross-institutional project. I believe it's 10 to 12 schools. So their theater students will engage with our theater students, and they're going to come together to put on this sort of, I keep saying collective, but that's what it is, this collective community working on this particular play, which talks all about the Black Plague in London. So it's actually very timely, and that's why the project was picked. So I know Clint's actively working on it as we speak, but it's a lot of coordination with all the other universities. But at the end, it will be really something, I think, something special.
That's with design and performance and all, in every aspect of it.
Yes, it's going to hit all of our disciplines pretty much, with the exception of maybe playwriting, because it's already a written piece. But the author has been made aware, and she's totally on board. So we're very lucky in that regard, because our faculty has access to all these amazing artists. And so Clint knows the author and has already been in contact. And so she's going to be a part of the project too, which I think is actually the most exciting part.
Fordham is the lead sponsor of it, so we're great. We're happy about it. So.
And thank you to the Dean's Office for giving us the funds to work on that. That's the most important part.
It's not the most important at all.
Good.
Your creativity is the most important. I also just want to say, while we're talking, so maybe I'll go to music first and then dance. So this is music and theater. I've been spending a fair amount of time, actually a lot of time, learning things that I never knew I wanted to learn about the capacities of any given space, as well as the social distancing procedures, the cleaning procedures, and more. And this is particularly true in the cases of dance, music, and the performing arts in general, so theater as well. So for example, I've been spending a lot of time with Chad and Stephanie and facilities, talking about the construction spaces, with the visual arts faculty, talking about what needs to be done in order to ensure that those spaces are usable. Even if the visual arts classes are going to be, even if visual arts classes will be online, students will still have access to the physical studios and the making spaces. I also just wanted to be sure everybody knows something that I didn't know until Stephanie and I joined a webinar offered by the Council of Independent Colleges and Universities of New York State. It's the official sort of New York State body of colleges and universities. New York State has not permitted indoor performance. Indoor arts performance is not permitted. So the things that our theater colleagues are doing is actually out of necessity. We are allowed to teach theater, and some theater classes will be meeting in a hybrid model, but New York State is not allowing live performances with audiences. So that's really created a real need at universities throughout the state of New York to come up with alternative models of presenting performances. And I will tell you that our colleagues in theater have really risen to the occasion. There were questions here also about practice rooms, and practice rooms are among those that we're talking about. We're literally talking about, I literally offered up my office as one of the spaces that could be used because the practice rooms in Lowenstein are too small. And I said, well, my office is pretty big, and I know a lot of people would like to practice after hours. I'm not there anyway. So, so we're finding alternative spaces. A lot of music instruction will be taking place remotely. Singing in particular is a high spreading disease. It's actually very, very dangerous. So we will, I think, have no no singing classes in person. But some other some other music like jazz ensemble will be meeting. So you're going to need to be in touch with the music department more closely. Some piano teachers want to teach in person, some don't. So this is something that's really on a case-by-case basis and having to do in part with the spaces that we have available. Okay, so now Melanie Person, can you please join us? Where is Melanie Person? Here we go. We've got a lot of questions for the BFA. So thank you, Melanie. I just want everybody to know that Melanie and I have been joined at the hip for a few months now. We learned that we're neighbors. We live not too far from each other, and we're spending a lot of time in our neighborhood. So Melanie, a lot of questions. So I'm just gonna toss out just a handful. One is, well, can more students participate in, so if ALE students take leaves of absence, does that mean that there's more room now in studio courses, dance courses for non-ALE students? I mean, because there's space.
So in the interest of the students wanting to return to the ALE studios, health and safety was driving the design of our plan, creating smaller cohorts. So we have cohorts of 10 to 14 students maximum. The cohorts are put together based on dancers' technique levels. And so those of the same ballet level are together, as well as the same levels of the modern dance techniques and otherwise. So we will keep the cohorts small. So if BFA students are not there in a cohort, it doesn't mean that we add extra students in. It's really designed for students of a technique level, BFA, and also other professional division students. So yeah, it's with the health and safety guidelines, 6-foot distancing, wearing of masks. Very much we are driven by the Dance USA guidelines that dance programs across the country are following.
Thank you so much, Melanie. And I just want to say that I know that the ALE school has been working very hard on their health and safety plan. They've been coordinating. They've met with Dennis Jacobs, our provost, and there's a lot of coordination going back and forth. So they are absolutely taking the top precautions. And it does mean that there's a reduction in the number of students who can be in a studio at any time. And I'll also just say that Emily, who is chatting behind the scenes, has done an amazing job of really trying to keep to give students as much in-person experience as possible. Another question, Melanie, if I may, is it possible, what happens if a senior BFA takes a semester off? Are you having a special meeting for seniors? Am I right about that?
Right, we're going to have a meeting tomorrow afternoon for the seniors. But in particular, if someone takes a leave of absence for a semester, have to pick up the semester at another time. So for example, if someone were to take off the fall semester and return to ALE and Fordham in the spring, they would need to continue into the fall of the following year. The other option that students have done to make up classwork is 2 summer intensive programs. So that would be an equivalent. And I think because we are both accredited institutions, the students have to fulfill the credit requirements and hours that are necessary for the degree.
Sure. Yeah, that makes complete sense. That's what a student would normally have to do. If you take a leave of absence, you would need to make up that work at another time. So that makes total sense. Thank you. Yeah. Can BFAs take a semester off from ALE but not Fordham?
Yes, I believe so. You can take it off. I mean, as long as Fordham is an agreement for you to just continue with your academics, you could take off a semester from ALE, yes.
Sure, thank you. And then just a very final question that I'm going to ask you. There are some very specific questions about ventilation systems in the ALE building and also ventilation systems at Lowenstein. But to be completely honest, the technical terms there, I don't want to get them wrong. And so I'll be happy to direct people to some of the documents that have been written, but I just don't trust myself to get the to get the technicalities right. So please forgive me. It's just because I don't want to misinform.
Laura, I'd like to add one thing.
Thank you.
That early next week, the students should see our health and safety plan. I know that was one of the things they've been asking me in the recent Zoom meeting. So that will be available for their review.
Oh,
early
great.
next.
Thank you. Oh, great. Thank you. Much better to be able to read it than to have me garble it. So thank you. And then just one last question on dance, and then let's move off to another topic, which is about Thanksgiving. Can you tell us about Thanksgiving? I know you were speaking to Dean Eldridge. You and I met with Dean Eldridge and Dr. Campbell about Thanksgiving and housing and so forth. And I'm not sure, Dean Eldridge, by the way, is here, and he might be answering some of the questions in the chat. I'm not sure. But Melanie, maybe you could just summarize where things were left.
Right, so the students were informed by Fordham that after Thanksgiving, Fordham would not resume the academic courses. And I received a number of emails from students saying to me, well, can we continue to take dance classes at Ailey? And that's when we met Laura and we spoke to Keith as well. And the dancers were given the approval to continue if they are to stay in New York at the dorms, which would, I believe, prevent them from leaving the city to go to their families, especially if it's a state which has the quarantine restrictions. So this is the part, we just recently sent out a survey to ask students who's interested in staying to complete the semester, you know, the 3 more weeks that we would have of in-person dance classes, who was planning to go home to be with their families and not returning, so that we can make a decision and determination about how to accommodate the interest of the students.
Thank you so much, Melanie. I know that you've been just incredible in terms of being flexible and really working around all of the constraints, and the constraints just keep coming at us. So thank you for all that you're doing. Now, I think I'm going to release you now and maybe call upon some of my Dean's office colleagues who've been far too silent for far too long, and I apologize for ignoring you. Dean McKnight and or Dean Stark-Gendrano, would either of you be willing to join us, or both maybe even?
Sure.
Thank you, so good to see you again.
Hi.
So we've gotten some sort of general questions about things like adding and dropping. Is adding and dropping going to work any differently this time around? Or are you still around? Are you still working with students? What's going on?
I am still around. I am working longer hours than I have ever worked before, just to keep up with the steady stream of email traffic and questions and concerns that are coming daily. I am usually at my computer by 7:30 or 8 o'clock most days. I take a break to eat dinner and put the kids to bed, and then I'm hopping back onto the computer at 9 o'clock at night to answer more emails and help more students. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to your class dean. We're all working really hard to get to your concerns and your questions. As far as add drop goes, that, you know, all of that is proceeding in the normal way. We have our forms available in electronic format so that we can send you a copy of the forms that you need. So, you know, all of the business of the dean's office is happening right here from my dining room.
Hi everyone, I'll just add that I'm also here, as are all of your other class deans, and it's been an interesting time. I know that some of our international students have wrote into the chat, and I just want to point out that a lot of us are still meeting with our international students. For instance, last night I had a 9:45 p.m. Zoom with an international student to be able to, you know, accommodate their time. And so do reach out to us. Don't feel afraid. Reach out to us, and we'll try to accommodate you as best as possible. And in terms of add drop is still happening in the same way that it's happened in previous years. And you'll have up until September 3rd, which is the end of the add drop period, in order to make any changes or alterations to your schedule.
Thank you so much. And actually, while we're talking about changes and alterations to our schedule, we were talking just earlier today about what we're going to be doing once we learn, once all the students and all the faculty have sort of finalized their course preferences, have indicated their course preferences. Can you just talk? Can one of you talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing to try to make sure that people are sort of as happy as they can be?
Sure. Do you want to Take it, Micah, or yeah.
No problem. And so earlier today, we kind of discussed auditing schedules to make sure that students have the classes that they want. But just, I want to point out that you can also reach out to us and let us know what your hopes and desires were for the fall semester so that we can proactively help you as best as possible. So in terms of sophomores, if you're experiencing that, hey, all of my classes are online and I was actually hoping to take a course that was in person, do reach out to me and I can help in assisting you to find a course like that. It's not perfect. I may not be able to help you find the specific course that you want to find, but I would say that it's a great idea to reach out and let's see how we can best accommodate your needs.
Thank you so much. And so I know that this is actually going to be a huge amount of work for. So thank you in advance for all that you're doing. I see that there's some questions too about financial aid, and I did want to say that in light of the pandemic, we are fully aware that a lot of people are suffering financially, and financial aid is Dean Williams with us? Is Dean Williams able to come on with her voice, perhaps?
I'm willing to come on with my voice.
Excellent. Dean Williams, am I right? Have students been coming to you and talking, students whose financial situations have changed?
Yes, like I have been in touch with a number of students over the course of many months because their circumstances have changed and are changing. So for example, there are students whose families situation was quite stable, and then in the last several weeks, things have changed markedly. And so what I do is assist them in appealing for additional financial aid and assisting them in making use of the emergency funds that are available to students. So I would encourage you, if your family circumstances have changed or you have questions about financial aid, generally speaking, I'm happy to be a resource for you. I do not take financial documentation or anything like that, but I act as a liaison between student financial services and you, because sometimes the information can be tricky, and it sometimes helps to express yourself to another human being. And so that's part of what I do.
Thank you so much, Dean Williams. So again, just wanted to reinforce that everybody's here, even if none of us is physically here. So I just wanted to respond to that. I also wanted to let you know, and I think you might know this because I've been sending out emails about it, but things about students who have opportunities off campus. So I'd just like to spend a little bit of time talking about that. So one question that's coming through the chats is, what about work study if I'm remote? So let's say that I'm a commuter student and I have an on-campus job. Will I still be able to do that job? The answer is, if the job can be done remotely, then yes, you can still do that job. That is the case for all of the student worker positions. If the job can be done remotely, then we're really hoping that you will please continue to do the job, because there's a great deal of work to be done. So I also wanted to tell you, and I think you know this, that we're really developing more and more virtual internship opportunities. So I really just wanted to explain, to just tell you a little bit more about that. We know that this is a tough time for everybody, and the last thing in the world that anybody needs is to have any opportunities taken away. So we are really working hard to develop as much as possible opportunities for students to either work remotely, whether it be as an internship or whether it be their work study. Now there's some questions about moving back and forth between the hybrid model and the online model. And the answer is yes, you can do that for sure. And in fact, the way that the system works is that we're actually fully expecting that students will need to move back and forth for whatever reason. So, for example, you might be coming from a quarantine state, and you might choose to not arrive until the start of classes. So let's say you choose to arrive in New York City on August 26th. That means that you would not be able to come to class for 2 weeks. You can take your class online for those 2 weeks, except for the handful of classes that are in person only. For this group, that's mostly only the dance technique classes at Ailey. At FCRH, there are also some bio labs that are in person only, and there's a handful of other exceptions. But for most of you, if you're coming from a quarantine state and you don't want to arrive in New York 2 weeks in advance, you can start your online experience. You can start your semester online and then switch to in-person, or rather, you can switch to participating in any experiences that are in person after the 2 weeks. Alternatively, you can come in as somebody who's, let's say, either residing on campus or planning to commute, and then you decide that it's really just not working for you. So if you plan to be off campus and away, so if you plan to be off campus and not commute, then you really should select the online option. That's the best thing for you. And again, you can do it at any time that you like. Let's see. A lot of the questions here are about students from restricted states and so forth. I do need to leave all of that for Dean Eldridge. So the people who we have here right now really are the academic folks. And while Dean Eldridge is happy to answer questions in the background, he's not joining us on camera tonight because the previous session was really dedicated to whoops, I'm trying to get my vital check because somebody asked a question about vital check, but I just wanted to share with you. Here it is. There's a question. This is the only sort of student experience question I'll answer. This is my vital check pass for today. This is something that all I had to do was answer a few questions, and then every day I have to log in and confirm a couple of things, and I get this little pass. And so you'll be able to show that to get onto campus. So let's see, what else do we have? Will students be able to sign up for online sessions with the Writing Center? Yes. We are ensuring that the Writing Center and, in fact, tutoring in general is available online. This is another case where FCRH and FCLC are joining forces. Again, in a way, this online experience is actually allowing us to do things that we were not able to do before. So we are allowing, not just allowing, but we're sort of bringing together the tutoring opportunities about at RH with the tutoring opportunities at LC, so that there will now be one sort of big pool of tutoring opportunities. So all of it online. In general, we've been advised not to hold in-person meetings with students for the most part, or with each other. Really, we're doing everything that we can in order to assure safety. So we have more theater people. So Chad and Stephanie, can you come back?
Hi, we're back.
Hi. So do you see a bunch of theater questions?
Yeah, I do. I'm going to take a couple of them, Stephanie. I'll jump in. There's one of the questions was about the lab hours commitment. All the students, all theater majors and minors have the lab hours commitment, and we are going to be doing our lab hours. We're also going to be having our work study students do their work. Everybody will be full out just as we always are. A lot of that will be virtual. The work that's going to be done on the productions, we'll have to have people coordinating equipment. We're going to be mailing things to people to use in their particular areas and their Zooms, if that's what we're doing with the production. That'll have to be coordinated. And there's a whole lot of different aspects of different things we've never done before. So we need students' help with making that happen. We're taking an advantage because we're always having to crank out a show, now we actually have time to do some more training that we never have time to do. And so we're going to be doing a lot more detailed training on lighting and costume and sewing and all the different aspects of production. So that's exciting. And so you'll be getting lab hours credit for that, where you're totally just learning about things like that. That's the one about the lab hours. Someone had asked me about the
I saw a few showcase questions, Chad.
Right.
I can jump in there while you're looking for the next topic. At the end of the senior years, we do a design showcase highlighting our designers' work, and we do a senior performance showcase highlighting our theater students' work, and then playwriting. Everyone has their own sort of wrap up at the end of their 4 years. But the design went online last year. So design went to a website. We did like a virtual presentation of everyone's pieces. The same thing is going to happen with the playwriting students. Their pieces are going to be woven into a beautiful, like almost like a film festival type thing. That's what we're working on now, that sort of model. So that's one aspect. But our senior performance showcase, I saw that there was a specific question about that. We already have a senior that is going to be the producer on that, and the wheels are already turning on that as well. So at the end, there will be some sort of presentation, whether it's online or not. We haven't gotten to the spring yet, so we're not 100% sure, but all of these things are already in the works. And that happens normally summer going into fall. So we're planning on all of our showcases right now, but we're not exactly sure what the model will be, but we're talking about them. I just wanted that to be clear, because nothing is going to be tossed aside or missed just because we're in a global pandemic, right? We're going to make it work. We're going to figure it out, and we're going to make it work, and we're going to get all of our students out there so they can be part of the theater community. And so don't worry, we'll get your networking up and running.
It's so important too to know that there'll be students who can't get to campus, who can't come back, and we want to be able to keep them engaged and keep them in the loop so that when this thing is over, they're ready to go as well, and they can graduate on time just like everybody else. So that's why we're going to make sure that it's for everybody. We're going to keep you all on board and keep you moving forward. I want to ask one other thing, if we have time, is the one person said about, should I just have my student finish their other major and not finish the theater major because of all of the changes? And I just want to say that that's going to be so disappointing to me, be tragic for somebody to like step out at this moment, because when we come out of the other side of this, we want to be the theater program that's leading the way on the way you do things when you're in a pandemic, and the way that you continue to educate the students. Our education of students is going to be better than it was before we started this pandemic. We're learning a whole new way of teaching. So I just don't want people to miss out on that. It's going to be really exciting, and it's something worth being here for. So I just hope that you'll engage with us and join us wherever you are. We're going to be engaging with people all across the world. So it's going to happen.
Thank you so much. I think so. Maybe let me go back now to some more general questions, but thank you. Theater is a very popular major. First of all, I think people are seeking reassurance about the core class restriction being lifted. Yes, it is. What that means is that currently, normally at Fordham, if you're an FCLC student, you must take all of your core courses at FCLC. And likewise, if you're FCRH, it's a rigmarole otherwise to get that restriction lifted. It can be done, but is often complicated. Literally tonight, Dean Mast and I, after consulting with our teams, concluded that that we are lifting that restriction for this semester. So for fall 2020, if you are an FCLC student, you may take a core class at FCRH as long as there's room. Now, of course, I can't promise you that there's room, so that's a different story. All of this pens availability. Let me just say, there's a question about Dean's research grants. Can they do labs? Maybe Dr. Morris, are you here? Jason's still here.
Yes, I'm here.
Here, what's happening with student research and labs and so forth in the natural sciences?
You mean independent study courses?
Independent study courses,
okay.
As well as Dean's Dean's research grants.
Got it.
If a student, yeah.
So there's some kinds of projects that really have to be done on campus, but there's others that do not have to be done on campus. And the professors who are able to guide students in research that can be done remotely are doing that. And I think there are some people who've gotten Dean money for their research who are able to take advantage of those opportunities. I'm not so fortunate. I need to be in the lab to do my work. And so I've had to postpone the projects that I was going to work on with students until we reopen in the summer for that. This past summer, I had to postpone that.
Thank you. And I do know that I think that some faculty members in natural sciences will be continuing to conduct tutorials in their labs in person. I believe Alma has said
yes,
that.
That's correct. And also some people are able to, some students are doing remote lab work with an in-house mentor, and those things are still happening as well. So for instance, I'm mentoring a student who's doing her work at Columbia.
So actually that raised another question. So some people, and I just want to share this because it did come up in my meeting with with the new natural science chair earlier today. People are asking about whether or not they'll be able to, if a class or a research experience normally involves going off site, then will they be able to continue doing that? And the answer is sort of that it depends. So if you're going to a place like, in my case, I'm an art historian. If you're going to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, if your class is going to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, it can go there because the Metropolitan Museum of Art will have had to submit to the state a full plan for reopening. And so it will have its own approved plan for social distancing and occupancy and so forth. And the same is true for students who are doing science research or other research at other facilities. As long as it's a facility that's had to go through this process, then yes. You cannot come, say, to my kitchen because it does not permit social distancing. I live in Manhattan, so my kitchen, one person and it's crowded. So, but as long as a place does indeed allow for social distancing and meets all of the requirements, then yes. And
this
so
is the
Jason,
place where the field
yeah.
ecologists have a big advantage. So if you were going to work at Delaware Bay counting horseshoe crabs, it's not too hard to social distance. But if you're going to be and different labs have different restrictions, and we'll just have to work that out on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you so much. I think I might toss this question back to Dr. Ruvald, if she's still around. The question that you were able to answer beautifully last night is really about absence policies, lateness policies, and as a faculty member, how do you think faculty members are going to handle these issues?
I think faculty members are very aware that, especially now, everything's unpredictable. I think traditionally, we've all been willing to work with students whenever circumstances arise to deal with individual situations as they need to be dealt with. And for the most part, I think people are incredibly understanding of whatever circumstances arise in students' lives and want to make accommodations as best as possible. In the present circumstances, I think people are going to be even more understanding of the fact that people have technical difficulties if they're in an online environment. We've always had people who struggle with the subway. And so I think flexibility is incredibly important. And I think that all faculty are very aware of the necessity, I think especially this year, to exercise kindness and generosity to our students. And just as we're doing that with our peers and with our colleagues, to understand that everybody is under tremendous pressure right now. And we're all doing the best that we can in unusual circumstances.
Thank you so much. And I'll just attest to that if I may. Dean Mast and I actually co-chaired a pedagogy working group in preparation for the flexible hybrid learning. And we devoted a fair amount of time in that pedagogy. So the question was sort of, what are the best practices? What are the best practices not only in certain fields, but also, so, what are the best practices for science labs, for example? What are the best practices for online science labs? Because a lot of people are really finding that that's the safest way to do science labs in these days, except with some exceptions. Almost all of the university science classes, science labs will be online. I think, again, as I said, I think that the biology labs at, I believe the biology labs at Rose Hill will be in person only, but I know, for instance, that the chemistry labs at Rose Hill will be online only. So where was I going with this? Yes. Sorry. So we have principles for pedagogical principles on which each faculty member has made their determinations about modality and so forth. But we've also really collected principles that are about what's actually needed at this moment in time. And Dr. Ruval mentioned kindness. We've really said to everybody, let's think about what does it mean to be teaching in an era of trauma. We have all been through trauma. We are all going through trauma. And that's actually a part of the work that's being built in to the learning and to the course design. Courses are being redesigned from the ground up. And I really just want to restate that. This is not going to be the experience that you had last semester. Faculty are devoting their entire summers to rethinking their courses, and some of the work that's coming out of it is just tremendous. So now I want to, I realize we only have about 2 more minutes left. And so I really want to be sure that I'm dealing with, we spent a lot of time on theater, a lot of time on dance. I want to come back to some of the more general questions that are really of concern to the widest range of people. So I'm wondering, Dean Williams, can you rejoin us again, maybe by audio?
I am here.
Thank you. Question I want to ask you is about leaves of absence, and why should a student choose to take a leave of absence or not? Or can you just tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Like if a student were to come to me and tell me that they don't feel that they can continue in the semester, before I just, fill out paperwork and drop them out of their classes with wild abandon, I ask them, like, what's really going on course by course. Sometimes it's actually just one course that is causing the difficulty, and it might require a conversation with the professor. So what I then recommend is that we set up a meeting, the 3 of us, or we write the professor together or something like that to figure out like what is actually going on. I think a leave of absence is necessary if you really feel like the semester is not salvageable, or for a medical reason, and we can talk about that as well. But my colleagues in the dean's office work closely with students as well. But if a student does come to me directly, my first point of interest is making sure that like we can salvage the semester in some way, shape, or form.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. So it is 9:30, and I absolutely want to be mindful of people's times. You've all spent a lot of time with us tonight, and I'm very grateful to the families, the students. I know that you all have a lot of questions, and there's still a lot of questions that are open. So we've answered 162, which is a lot, but not all by any means. And so what I'm going to let you know is that we're going to shut down the video part now, but we're going to keep the chat, sorry, not the chat, the Q&A open for a little bit so that we can answer as many more questions as we can in the next few minutes. So I would encourage you, please, to keep an eye on the chat if something hasn't been answered. We'll answer as many as we can in the next sort of 5 minutes. After that, then the Q&A and the webinar will be posted. I don't yet have the information about where the site will be, but we will share the information about where it will be posted. So finally, I really just want to thank everybody for spending so much time with us tonight. And I really hope that you'll be well. I also really encourage you to reach out to anybody who was on this panel As you know, we are absolutely all here to help you. I think Dean Stark Gendrano said that, you know, she's at work at 7:30 in the morning until all hours of the night. We are here, we are working. We might not be in Lowenstein, but we are absolutely at your service. In fact, I would say more than ever. So thank you again for coming. I really hope to see you in just a few weeks. And most of all, please be well. Thank you.